Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and repentant alike. You're tuned into the Don't Miss It podcast with Sophia Spiritualite here on the MariKaNa News Network. And in this podcast, we are going to discuss some presidential actions that are not covered during the week. Of course, this is the third podcast for the week. In the first podcast, first two, we cover the events for a particular week. And in the third podcast, we cover presidential actions because there's a lot of them and some of them really need to be discussed and documented for people to get some better understanding. So this week we're covering February the 3rd through February the 9th. Of course, today is March 15th, and so it's been a few weeks. We can see which things are really important by now. And so the presidential action we're going to talk about this week is called A Plan for Establishing a United States Sovereign Wealth Fund. This was issued on February the 3rd, 2025, and the link will be in the bio so you can refer back to it. This is very, very important. If people are not clear on what a sovereign wealth fund is and how it's used, I was on a cruise one time and I met a couple from Saudi Arabia, and they had just been married, and this cruise was a part of their honeymoon. They had, I think, about 2 months that they spent in America, traveling all around from coast to coast, doing a bunch of different stuff as a part of their honeymoon package. And when they got back to Saudi Arabia, I asked the young lady, I was like, well, are you going to have babies? Or are you going to go back to work? She was like, no, I'm going to go back to work for a little while. We're not ready for that. So on and so forth. The reason they were able to have 2 months after their wedding, which was probably huge, is because Saudi Arabia has a sovereign wealth fund for its citizens. The citizens of Saudi Arabia, not the people who moved there afterwards, but actually a particular bloodline. That is something that we long should have had in America, because outside of the Ishmaelites, for people who understand what I'm saying, as the tribe or children of Jacob, we were the ones that was given the blessing, and those quote unquote children of Jacob are here in this country. And so there's no explaining why our cousins over there in the Middle East, because it's not just Saudi Arabia, Qatar has this, most of the quote unquote what would you call them, modern Middle Eastern countries, they have these funds, these bloodline related funds for their citizens. And so there's no reason why we should not have that in America. But see, what happened is the wealth of America has been taken and redistributed to the world. This is what socialism is. The socialism was not taken from their people and redistributing it to the quote unquote rich people, the wealthy people in their countries. No, it was about taking the wealth of America and redistributing it to the wealthy people overseas. This is what, how else can you describe USAID? That's literally what they did. They're taking money from American citizens here in this country, putting all this outrageous regulations and stuff like that on us so that all of our wealth, all of our creativity, not to mention they have the Office of Net Assessment and U.S. Patent Office, which is literally taking our inventions of our American citizens, stealing them, weaponizing them, and using them against the people. When I say that this is a huge racket to not steal from the citizens in those other countries, they not producing nothing. It's to steal from the citizens in this country, the wealth of this country. I mean, one thing Joe Biden did, which people don't understand, is he sold our entire strategic oil reserve to the UK because they started that war in Russia. They sold our entire strategic oil reserve. Why would they? Because they were all getting their oil from Russia, which is another, Russia and the United States are the two sticks. For people who know that particular lingo, we are the two sticks. And so, if you're not going to get it from Russia, you have to get it from us. There's no other place to get it from. This is the land that was promised. And so that's what they've been doing all of these years, all the way back as far as you can remember, before Nixon, to 1913, when they started the central bank, Federal Reserve. That's how long they've been doing this. And even longer than that, when you look in the actual history world, the civil wars and all this stuff, this was all about stealing the valuable things that were in this country. And so this has been going on a very, very long time. America is a very, very rich country, and it would be even richer if we could get these pirates out. And so, one of the weeks, Trump issues an executive order on a shipbuilding office, and we're definitely going to read that, because these people are pirates. We need ships because these people are pirates. And so the only way to get rid of pirates is with other pirates with bigger ships. And the backing of the military, which is very huge in this country, except for we don't have a lot of ships. And people should have ships. And there should be fighting in the water over people trying to come to this country illegally, and there's not. Now, I happen to be from a place, Prince George's County, Maryland, where everybody has a boat. It's the richest black county in the country, was formerly, I hope to be saying really, really soon. And everybody has a boat. Boating is, my father was a captain of a ship. He grew up on boats, a fisherman. This is very common in Maryland because of the way that it's set up. But I understand in other places this is not quite as common, but we have to bring it back. That's basically that in a nutshell. So this sovereign wealth fund, basically what Trump can do. Now, will he do this? I don't know. But what he can do is any funds that are deallocated or delisted or rescinded, because that's a term that has come up. We'll probably talk about that executive order too. All of those funds he can take, and he doesn't have to give it back to the Treasury. He doesn't have to give it back to the Congress doesn't even give the money. It's the Treasury. He doesn't have to give it back to the Treasury. He can take all of the savings, all of it, and put it into a sovereign wealth fund. We know that's what he's going to do, because he has been talking about the External Revenue Service. This is the office that's going to collect the tariffs. The IRS is not going to collect the tariffs. To me, that is the biggest thing. That way, those people who have oversight over the IRS will not be looking to see how much money is being made and then reporting it back, so they can figure out how to put in a rat line. That's basic, or steal it, basically. Let's say steal. Steal is a proper word. So they can't figure out how to steal the money. The External Revenue Service should be, once as the national debt is paid off, and once it is paid off in full, which I totally expect will happen very, very quickly, possibly this year, I just wanted him to default on it. But it's actually even better if he pays it off, because then there's nothing that these freedom clowns and these lone wolves will have to hold over this country. They have been holding over this country, the people of this country, this quote unquote debt that we owe, that we don't owe, that's not our debt, forever. They use it as a campaign point. They use it as a talking point. Instead of actually making things better for the people of this country, they are talking about debt, which is not making anyone better. So Trump has trumped them and decided, we're not going to talk debt. We're going to talk revenue. And let me tell you something. Nobody understands revenue. I'm talking about this all the time, because modern business schools do not teach revenue because they don't understand it. They know you have to make calls. They know this. They do not teach revenue. The people who understand revenue are billionaires. No one else understands revenue. They don't get it. They don't get it. I'm telling you, you may think that that's crazy. They don't get it, because just to talk about what we covered last week was the whole regulation thing. They don't understand revenue, because when the bureaucracy has been allowed to issue new regulations related to revenue, new regulations that have costs that can't be calculated or haven't been calculated, and they don't know how much it's going to cost the actual people to implement it, they are not thinking about the money that they are thinking about the money that they're going to bring in, but they don't care about that money. They're only basing what they want to do on what they want to see happen. They're not actually looking at how much it's going to cost people, even though the GAO scores bills as they're being brought up. They still don't talk about revenue. How much is this bill going to make? Now, there are some business people in Congress who understand this and they bring this thing up, but most of them, they don't understand this. They don't understand revenue. They don't know how revenue works. They don't know what revenue is, honestly. And we as a country are going to get a huge lesson in what revenue is. And once people get in their minds what revenue is, they will absolutely be able to continue that on. And they never wanted us to understand revenue because it costs money to make money. Everyone knows that. And when you're deciding on if you're going to invest in something, you need to know how much it's going to cost. So like, for example, the Green New Scam, as President Trump calls it, they never knew how much it was going to cost to implement. So they never knew how much money they could make from it. When they have windmills out there, they kind of knew how much they would cost to make because there wasn't really any good pricing, but they never looked at how much money it was going to bring in. Like a lot of people, okay, here's another one I know people know. A lot of people have solar panels on their houses, right? Unless you live in an area where there's constant sunshine, like Arizona, and there's very little rain, very few quote unquote natural disasters, solar panels are no good for you. You don't need solar panels because they're not going to actually make you they're not going to actually quote unquote offset your electricity costs. It doesn't work like that. And so they went around telling everybody, even in areas like Washington State where they've got like 2 days of sunshine the whole year, get these solar panels because if you get them, it's going to decrease your bill. But what it actually did was it didn't decrease your bill. In many cases I've seen in the state of Maryland, it increased your bill because you also had to pay a fee to have that solar panel on your house because you didn't buy the solar panel straight out. They had weird programs, lots and lots of weird programs. And so where you thought you should have been saving money, it never actually came to fruition. Now, if you live somewhere, like I said, Arizona, New Mexico, where they get a lot of sun, the desert, then solar panels make sense. But if you don't live in the desert, like even in Florida, that doesn't make sense. We get a lot of sunshine. We also get a lot of rain. We also get a lot of crazy weather. So to have something stuck to your house, talking about solar panels when you've got a category 4 hurricane bearing down on you, no, it doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It doesn't make any sense. And so they would tell people all across the country, oh, this is what's going to do for you. This is what's going to do for you. And really, they're quoting the best case scenario, which is almost never happens. And they're definitely not including any discussions of revenue, which again is, how can you have these discussions without discussing revenue? It makes absolutely no sense. And so this sovereign wealth fund is a first step in that direction. So let's go ahead and read this. Because I've gone on long enough about this. A plan for establishing a United States sovereign wealth fund. The White House, February 3rd, 2025. By the authority vested in me as the President of the Constitution, as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, and in order to promote the long-term financial health and international leadership of the United States, it is hereby ordered. Section 1, Policy and Purpose. It is the policy of the United States to maximize the stewardship of our national wealth for the sole benefit of American citizens. To this end, it is in the interest of the American people that the federal government establish a sovereign wealth fund to promote fiscal sustainability, lessen the burden of taxes on American families and small businesses, establish economic security for future generations, and promote United States economic and strategic leadership internationally. Section 2, Sovereign Wealth Fund. The Secretary of the Treasury and the Secretary of Commerce, in close coordination with the Assistant to the President for economic policy shall develop a plan for the establishment of a sovereign wealth fund consistent with Section 1 of this order. The Secretary of the Treasury and the Secretary of Commerce shall jointly submit this plan to the President within 90 days of the date of this order. Such plan shall include recommendations for funding mechanisms, investment strategies, fund structure, and governance model. The plan shall also include an evaluation of the legal considerations for establishing and managing such a fund, including any need for legislation. Section 3. General Provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect 1. The authority granted by law to an executive department, agency, or head thereof, or 2. The functions of the Director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. B. This order shall be implemented consistent with the applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. C. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law, or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, agents, or any other person. The White House, February 3rd, 2025. So that's a really short order, but understand what it's saying. Literally, they're going to figure out where extra money is in the government, and instead of USAID eating up all the money, foreign wars, the British, who are always looking for where money is in this country and taking it, stealing it like the robber barons they are, any extra funds, and they'll get it into law with the Congress. It's not going to be an issue because the people are going to rise up against them if they don't. They're going to take it and put it in a fund, and then ideally these funds will be distributed to American citizens. Now, this is why you have to have a country where citizenship is done properly, and that is also one of the things that's working its way through the courts, so that we can have a surefire, solid definition of what it means to be a citizen or national, and who that includes and who that does not include, especially when you have people like Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, who are not citizens being elected to the presidency. You have to have a clear definition of what that is. Now, in order to be a citizen, now Obama might actually, it depends on his mother was born in Hawaii, and Hawaii was not a state. So that the same thing with Tulsi Gabbard, is she an actual citizen because Hawaii was not a state? And if she was born in Hawaii, that could be, that could present some issues in citizenship status. So they have to figure out how they're going to handle retroactively some of this stuff. But you cannot have people coming across the border, giving birth in American hospitals, these states incorrectly issuing them a certificate of live birth, which is wrong, and them so that they can claim that they're citizens. You can't do that. And so as long as until that issue is tied up and really taken care of, you can't distribute these funds, these sovereign wealth funds, like that. You just can't do it. And so that's kind of why some of the things are being done the way that they are, because if you want to increase the wealth of your citizenry through the money that they're already creating, they're already earning, and the wealth that's already been created in this country, then you have to know who a citizen is or national. You can't, and really they shouldn't be using citizen and national interchangeably. I hope that they also address that, because there's a difference. Like, as a national, there's benefits I'm supposed to have that citizens don't have. And anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So I hope they address the whole issue and not just part of the issue, I'm happy if they address any of it, because literally nobody's talking about any of this stuff. And it's very, very frustrating as a person who studies this citizen, national sovereignty topic like I do from a financial perspective. This stuff got to be cleared up, and right now it's not clear. It's very murky, and the British love murky, and they've been able to really utilize this murkiness to their benefit, and so the clarity is welcome, in my opinion. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Of course, if you like this kind of content, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us on the Don't Miss It podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Spiritualite. Peace and blessings, and we'll see you in the next podcast.